Me.
Oh, not yet. One sec. Sorry, Dave. Let me just get my little lowly Word doc over there.
It's okay.
Okay. So I'm ready for you, Dave, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We are meeting tonight under extraordinary circumstances. Our community, along with communities around the country and the world, have been observing social distancing and other health safety measures to slow the progress of a COVID-19 pandemic for many weeks. To allow normal or near normal operations of the city government functions to continue, the governor of New York has declared a disaster emergency and has issued multiple executive orders, and the city of Rochester mayor has issued several local emergency orders, which together authorize the holding of this hearing virtually, subject to waivers of certain requirements in the New York State Opens Meetings Law and the Rochester Zoning Code. In addition, earlier at our pre-hearing meeting, we amended the Planning Commission rules and procedures to allow us to conduct this hearing as authorized by the governor's and mayor's emergency orders, and to waive other requirements to allow us to proceed with this hearing as I will now describe. Primarily, these waivers include the requirements for in-person attendance by commission members, staff, and the public at this hearing. The emergency orders permit us to hold this hearing by teleconference with no in-person attendance, allow applicant presentations by teleconference, and require all public comments, both in favor of or in opposition to the application, to be submitted in writing by mail or by hard copy, documented mailed to the zoning office or deposited in a secure drop box located in the link entrance of City Hall. These written comments were all required to be submitted by 5 p.m. Friday, May 8th. Although the conduct of this hearing has been altered from some of our normal procedures, many things remain the same. All normal notifications of this hearing, including mailing notice, publication, and the posting of notice, were followed. A staff report, which has been prepared for each application, and that report, along with the application and other pertinent documents, have been presented to the commission members and are posted online several days prior to tonight's meeting. All the normal timeframes for applicant presentations and comments in favor or in opposition to the application remain the same. Most importantly, this commission will hear, review, and make decisions about all the applications with the same diligence and using the same standards as required by the zoning code. Before we would begin, I would like to explain the ground rules for the hearing. When the case is called, the applicant will be allowed 15 minutes to present their case to the commission. The applicants were all posted on the city website for at least a week ago, and they were available for public review. All applicants were advised to ensure that their applications were complete and included all information that they intend to present at this hearing tonight. As the application is presented, staff will be responsible to identify and show the pages of the application that the applicant is addressing in their presentation. Following the normal procedure, commission members may ask the applicant questions about the application. After the applicant's presentation is completed, staff will read into the record public comments that have not been submitted by the comment deadline. First, those in support of the application, then those in opposition. These comments will be limited to 10 minutes if submitted by an authorized representative of officially recognized neighborhood association, and 3 minutes for all other comments. In reading the submitted written reports will exceed these time limits, staff will summarize these comments to fit the timeframes allowed. Multiple submission repeats the same comment Staff will summarize these comments. Any public comment that were received in the time to be posted online and with the staff report will not be read into the record hearing tonight. There will be no calling comments. After all the comments have been read, the applicant will have 5 minutes to offer any testimony in rebuttal. After the public comments, the applicant's opportunity to rebut the public hearing for the application will be adjourned and held over to later this evening for the commission to deliberate and issue decision to be described below. However, if the commission determines that substantial new information has been submitted by the applicant during the hearing, the case will be postponed and held over to the commission's next announced meeting date in order give the public opportunity to review and comment on the new evidence. After completing all of the hearings on the agenda tonight, the commission may elect to take a short break, which will be announced. After the hearing and break, the commission will then commence deliberation and voting on the applications, except any application that has been adjourned to another meeting date. Please also note that if your case is approved today, a written decision will be mailed to you within 15 business days. The decision will inform you on the next steps to complete the approval process. Before we open the first case, please note that we are all volunteers. I would like each commission member to confirm their presence for the purpose of a roll call and establishing a quorum for this hearing, to introduce themselves and to mention the quadrant in which they live. And we'll start with Carrie Carroll.
Carrie Carroll, Southeast District. Hi, everybody.
Red Flower, South District.
Henry Martin, Northwest.
Richard Mauser, Southeast.
Milton Pichardo, Northeast.
Steve Rebholz, East District.
And my name is Dave Watson, Southwest. And maybe call the first case.
Alrighty, so case number 1, file number M-06-19-20, case type zoning map amendment. The address is 1-5-7-9. Let me pull this up actually so you guys can read along with me. 1-5-7-9, 11-15, 4-16, 8-8.5, 10 Laura Street, 1240 and 1252 East Main Street. I want to go on record saying all present commissioners have visited the site. So Dave, I think now what you do is you just ask who here is present to talk about the case and just swear them in.
All right. Those present for case number 1, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Answer by responding yes.
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 Thank you. You can continue your application.
Alrighty.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Bob Steeler. I'm with Labella Associates. I'm the civil engineer for the project. I'm here with Tom Simbari. He's the architect for the project. And Lillian Forte is the city's PM for the project as well. We're here to present the Rochester Police Department and Neighborhood Service Center Goodman section. Next slide, please. So the project is located on the intersection of Laura Street and East Main Street. There's 3 former houses on the west side of Laura Street, 3 former houses on the east side of Laura Street, and then 8 properties along East Main Street, bordered on the west by AutoZone, totaling 14 properties. The houses shown on the aerial in this picture have been demolished earlier this year for this project. The western portion of the site, right next to AutoZone, is a brownfield. So that kind of describes the site. If you can go to the next slide, Anna, I can start to talk about the site plan. So the purpose of this project is to turn the Rochester Police Department into a neighborhood beat structure to allow more of a community engagement with the police officers. And this is the first section that will be turned into a beat center, the southeast section. So we're proposing a new 20,000 square foot building just west of the former Laura Street, East Main Street intersection, northwest corner. Laura Street will be partially abandoned to vehicle traffic and will be kept open as a plaza and bike lane and pedestrian traffic through Laura Street. The project will also involve a new parking lots. 114 spaces will be secured for the Rochester Police Department and Neighborhood Service Center. That's for both patrol vehicle and personal vehicles. And that parking demand analysis was established early in the project to allow the officers enough spaces during a shift change. Those areas will be secured by a 6-foot tall decorative fence, both on the northeast corner secured spot, and then the area along the west and north of the building, west of Laura Street. There'll also be a public parking space on the southeast corner of the site, approximately 30 spaces open to the public, specifically for this facility. The project will also have a green infrastructure component. So the project was awarded a $1.1 million grant. This will allow for stormwater treatment, stormwater quality. The practices include a green roof, porous pavement, porous concrete, tree plantings, and a rain garden, and then building planters that would also capture roof runoff. And the intent of those practices is to treat the water, clean the water, and discharge storm sewer less than existing conditions to the existing main on Laura Street. Next slide, please. So the reason why we're here today is to propose a rezoning of the 6 properties on Laura Street. The 3 properties on the west side of Laura Street, shown in the yellow there, were formerly R1. We're proposing to turn those into C2. And then 3 properties on the east side of Laura Street were formerly R1. We're proposing to change to R2. A side note here, that we're proposing to change to R2, not R2/00. Next slide, please. So in a code review with zoning, we identified the front setbacks, side setbacks, all the code requirements for the project. And zoning identified some variances that will be required for the project. I apologize, this slide is slightly out of date, so I'll read the preliminary findings from zoning. So the first variance will be required is a front yard setback, whereas code requires 0 to 5 feet. We're proposing 13.5-foot setback along the frontage. This is to align the building with the other buildings on the north side of East Main Street. It also provides a public plaza area at the entrance to the building, so it's not, so it's more of a community gathering area in that location. The next variance would be a minimum rear yard setback of 20 feet is what's required by code. We're proposing 16 feet. It's my understanding that once these 14 properties are re-subdivided as part of the project, that this variance will no longer be required. This will only be required before that happens. Where the actual rear setback will exceed over 100 feet in the future. The next variance that's proposed is a building square footage. The programming for both the Rochester and Police Department and Neighborhood Service Center required about 20,000 square foot building, whereas code requires a maximum of 6,000 square feet. And we worked with both the Neighborhood Service Center and the Rochester Police Department on that programming. The next variance, all windows should be clear or lightly tinted. We have some opaque spandrel glass we're proposing for the project. And the reason is, this being a police department, there's security reasons that would cause us to propose more of an opaque spandrel glass as opposed to clear. And then the next variance is a similar thing. The building is required to have 70% of the wall area between 2 feet and 8 feet from the ground to be open glass. We are proposing 52% transparency. And that we worked with the city to kind of maximize that number to get it as close to the zoning code as we could. Again, it's a security thing. All the glass has to be bulletproof and rated. So it's very, very expensive. So that's the variance that we're asking for later on in the project. Again, tonight, we're only asking for the rezoning of the 6 properties on Laura Street. We'll be going before the zoning board for the variances and then back to Planning Commission for the ancillary parking lots east of Laura Street. Next slide, please. I'll have Tom talk about the exterior elevations, a little bit about the building.
All right, so hopefully my dog will remain silent. She's
Tom, for the record, could you just give your name and position again?
Sure. My name is Tom Sambari. I'm an architect with Labella Associates, and I am the project manager for the project. So thank you for entertaining us here virtually. I'll try to walk you through the elevations. We also have renderings, which likely will be easier to see. So what you see here are the south elevation of the building and the east elevation. The southern elevation faces East Main Street, and the east elevation faces the Laura Street Plaza. The building is primarily a brick, clay brick, buff color brick. We have accent polished CMU for the stair tower and a water table around the building. And we have some resinous HDPL panels. Some are faux wood and some are color. So the color is around the large glass sloped curtain wall structure that you see in the southeast corner of Laura and Main Street that you see there. We show some signage here. There's really nothing else to show. We have the transparency calculations, which again probably is hard to read, but as Bob Steeler mentioned, I think we're at just over 52% transparency from 2 to 8 feet. The buildings, the windows on the first floor do extend to 9 feet, so we actually have a little bit more transparency if you were to consider that. I think it's another 2 or 2.5%. And we did go to the project review committee and we modified the amount of glazing on the facade on both the Main Street and the Laura Street facade to accommodate some of their comments and to get additional glazing into the building. We were unable to, one of the comments was to lower the glazing. Right now, I think it's at a 5-foot sill height or a 4-foot sill height. And the reason for on the first floor and the second floor, and the reason why there's security concerns, of course, with it being a police station and offices. So we elected with review of RPD and NSC to leave the sill height of the windows up higher. Next slide. This is the north and the east elevation. The north elevation faces the parking lot area, the secure parking lot area for RPD. This again is primarily buff brick with accent HDPL wood grain panels. All of the glazing throughout the building is also clear anodized aluminum with a light tinted, blue tinted glass. There is some spandrel glass, as Bob mentioned, to hide some of the structure. And I think we can probably see that better in the renderings. So maybe if we just go to the renderings next. Yep. So this is the rendering from East Main Street. It actually shows there's a simultaneous project going on with the East Main Street revitalization corridor. So the rendering actually depicts some of the improvements that the East Main Street project will incorporate, like the bike path and changes to the median. So this is looking northwest. This is the main entry of the building. The sloped glazing that you see in that is a stacked set of community rooms. One is NSC and the other is an RPD training and community space. So we tried to bring as much glazing into the building as we could to accommodate some of the transparency requirements that zoning includes or requires. The blue is the resinous panel. It's a similar panel that you see in some of these first floor recesses, both on Main Street and the Laura Street side. That's a wood grain resinous panel. And again, the whiter tan material is the clay brick, and the stair tower is the polished CMU. We do have the plaza showing the pedestrian plaza. So we've got a monument sign, we've got our flag poles, public seating area and gathering space there as well. Probably next slide, I guess. So this is still a view from East Main Street looking east. The other element that is on the Main Street facade is a public mural, artwork display. So that's what you see kind of the first floor below the 1200 signage in the southwest corner of the building. That'll be something that the artwork will actually be developed with the community along with some artists. It'll be a panelized system that gets installed. Right now we just have an image shown, but the image will be determined. The resinous panel, again, the wood grain panel shows up on the bump out on the west facade, which is roll call space for RPD. And we've screened the HVAC units as well on the rooftop with that same panel. The roof is a green roof, so it's a vegetative sedum roof. Sections, we've seeded as much of the roof as possible, given the equipment up there. There are some restrictions around perimeter, but in general, the entire roof area, except for the stair tower, has sedum on it. Next slide. So this is kind of the project schedule, where we began and where we're going. We started working, we completed programming with RPD and NSC back in October. We got through schematic design, developing the floor plans in December. We had a public information meeting that was well attended and I think went fairly well back end of January. And this is kind of an outdated slide here. We did complete design development. We're actually currently in process of completing the bid documents. We're slated to issue those to the city tomorrow for a bid advertisement on May 18th. The bid opening would be June 23rd. And of course, we have several meetings along the way here with the city to get through zoning and planning approvals, this being the first one. We have a rezoning meeting, assuming approval here tonight. This would then go to City Council for June 16th, then Zoning Board of Appeals on June 18th, and back to the Planning Commission here on July 13th to deal with the ancillary parking lots. Once approved and bids awarded, construction would start hopefully around September 1st of this year. and would finish about 15 months later, January, February 2022. And I think that completes our presentation. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for the applicant?
This is Carrie Carroll.
Yes, Carrie.
I have a couple of questions. Two are just semantic, I guess. What are CMU and HDPL?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So CMU is concrete masonry units. So the polished masonry units, yeah, if you could bring up the rendering, I don't know what slide that was at. Probably back a couple slides.
Oops.
Yeah.
Which one do you want?
Yeah.
This one?
Probably right there. So the highest point of the building, back in the northeast corner, you see that gray tower. That's the stair tower. That also has a public mural on it as well for artwork. So that is the polished CMU. So that would be a gray exposed aggregate concrete masonry unit that would have a polished finish on it. So they buff it to get it more like a granite. The HDPL is more of a laminate. So it's a compressed laminate with resins. So it's a high density plastic laminate type of product. It's about 3/16 of an inch thick. It's extremely durable. And it's been used, there's several buildings in the city that have it. It's been used in Europe for probably 20 years.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
The other question was, we're proposing converting from different zoning zones. So rather than C2 and R2, was there a reason that C2 wasn't just done as a contiguous section? Did it make it easier for variances, or what was the logic around that?
Yeah, I think our design was intended to minimize the number of variances. Laura Street was kind of the buffer from the zoning district. West of Laura Street, there was some C2 surrounding that. East of Laura Street, there was some R2 surrounding that. Eventually, I didn't mention this, but I should have. Eventually, the 14 properties will be re-subdivided into 2 properties. So you have one property west of Laura Street, one property east of Laura Street. So the property west of Laura Street would be one zoning district C2, which some of the properties in that re-subdivision are already C2. And then the properties east of Laura Street would be R2, and where some of the properties east of Laura Street are already R2.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
I noticed your schedule is a little aggressive. Is the grant that you going to receive attached to the schedule? Due to the COVID-19, do you think you will start construction in September and finish by January or February? If the grant is not attached to the schedule, then that's fine. But I know you mentioned that you may get some type of funding.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have an answer to that. Maybe Lillian does, but I know that this is considered an essential project. So we were able to design the last 2 months through COVID to get to where we are, which is the bid documents. And this will go out to bid just like it would before COVID, being an essential project. And we may actually get better numbers because of it. As far as the grant, I'm not really sure. I know the grant has been awarded. At this point, we're just we'd have to show our conformance with the grant. And that's mostly engineering.
All right, very well. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Yes.
I see that Laura Street's being left basically as a back entrance exit for the parking, and it's basically a residential street. It's basically a dead end street at that point. And I'm just curious about why that's being done, and curious about why maintaining the width of what was the street all the way through the site and then needing to get variances for setbacks for the parking?
Sure. So the main reason we have that entrance off of Laura Street is for fire code. The police vehicles need at least 200 points, 2 entry exit points during emergency was another factor. But the fire code, that hammerhead turnaround, kind of the south end of the termination point on Laura Street, is to provide fire access to the building. As far as keeping the right of way for both for the project schedule and from zoning and property standpoint, we felt the easiest solution was to keep it as remaining right of way. The only change in that right of way would be a closure to vehicle traffic through that area. As far as the setbacks for the parking area, the main reason is we're working within a limited space and we have a parking demand that requires, for emergency purposes, we want the, when an officer shows up for shift change, we want that to be interchangeable. So we have enough parking spots so that officers can come into the building while, before the other officers leave, which is really a safety thing, response time thing. And so to get that number of required spaces to meet that demand, that's why we're proposing the variances.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, this case is closed. May we have the next case, please?
Sure thing. So just a thing to
Yes.
note, there were no comments received. The case is closed just because we did not receive any comments in favor.
Oh, I'm
opposition.
sorry, I went too soon.
I like it. I'm glad we're keeping on track.
Okay. Anna, can I just ask, so there, no comments and none in the staff report, right?
That's correct. So at the time of publication, there were no staff reports, and then as of right now, there are no comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so case number 2, this is file number OMA 05-1920. The applicant is the city engineer of the city of Rochester. This is a portion of Laura Street, and all present commissioners have visited the site. So we have Donna Clemens here to present on behalf of this project. I believe
All
she.
right, I'm sorry.
Nope.
I will swear Donna in. Donna, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Hi, my name is Donna Clements. I'm a civil engineer with DES Street Design, and I'm here to request that you recommend an amendment to the official map, which would prohibit vehicular traffic on a portion of Laura Street. This would allow us to create the pedestrian plaza. And that is about it. Do you have any questions for me?
Donna, just one clarification and for the record, are you incorporating into this presentation, or would you like us to incorporate into it the testimony from the previous case, since some of it's quite pertinent?
I would
Laura Street.
Yeah, I would defer to your judgment with that.
I don't know that we need to.
I think we need to. Well, I mean, it's on the record now that because there was testimony, and to rather than redo the testimony about what Laura Street consists of and why it's situated in a way and why the right of way is being maintained, I think it's pertinent.
I guess I don't have any objection.
Okay, let's go ahead then.
Yeah, that being clarified, are there any questions for the applicant?
Nope. So there were no comments received as a result of our postcard notification and the other means of notification during the time of publication or after.
And then everybody had also visited the site as well.
That is correct, yes.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, this case is closed. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
May we have the next case, please?
Sure thing. Case number 3, file number OMA-06-19-20, applicant Ray Weatherby, CDS Life Transitions Incorporated. The address is Theodore Street. I'd like to go on record saying all present commissioners have visited the site.
All right, I will swear in the applicant. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. This is Ray Weatherby with CDS Housing. Yes, I affirm your response, and we also have our civil engineer Tim Harris with Passero on the phone, who you'll want to have him testify as well.
Okay, thank you, Ray. And Tim, do you?
I do, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You may start your presentation.
Sure. Tim Harris with Passero Associates, 242 West Main Street, 14614. As you heard, Ray Weatherby from CDS Life Transitions is also on the call here. Here tonight just to present to this commission the abandonment of Theodore Street. It's part of the CDS project at Joseph and Clifford, which, as you know, many of you may know, you've seen this before. It's about 7 multifamily buildings being constructed on 3 lots on the corner, or the southwest corner, or southeast corner, excuse me, of Clifford and Joseph. As part of this, part of the approval process, we're asking for this commission's recommendation to City Council for the abandonment of Theodore Street. It's currently a 31-foot right of way with a 16-foot, roughly 16-foot wide pavement section. We're again proposing to abandon that with the purchase of 6 Theodore Street as part of the project by CDS, along with the other city-owned parcels that are adjacent to Theodore Street, Mariah Street, and Clifford Avenue. As part of the design, we will be converting Theodore Street, or what would be Theodore Street, into a residential driveway, 24-foot wide, to access the 5-story building on the immediate corner of Joseph and Clifford. With that, I can answer any questions the commission may have, and again, just asking for this board's recommendation and endorsement to City Council.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for the applicant? Any questions?
None here.
Then, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This case is closed. May we have the next case, please?
Case number 4, file number E-21-19-20. The applicant is Matthew Danker. The address is 93 Marsh Street. All present commissioners have visited the site.
And for the applicant, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, and I also have Jason Dobbs, the architect, on the phone too. He should be in this meeting.
Okay.
Jason
Hobbs? Is that Jason Hobbs?
Dobbs.
Dobbs, I'm sorry, thank you.
No problem.
I'm here as well.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Do you affirm?
I do.
Thank you. And you may present.
Great, thanks. So the last time we were here was back in January. And just as a real quick little bit of background, if we recall, the plan is to replace a largely unused parking lot with 5 new market rate for sale owner occupied townhouses, and then to build a new parking lot behind where the townhouses and the existing 6-unit apartment building on Marsh Street is, which is why we're here for the ancillary parking lot. In January, there was a good amount of feedback from the commission, which thank you very much. I appreciate it. And so the major thing I wanted to go through was to talk over the changes that we made based on the feedback that we received. And if you could go to page 7 in the staff report. So, so this is the revised plan. The basic layout of the site has not changed. It's still this existing 6-unit building on lot 1. And it's still the 5 new lots on the north side of the property for the 5 townhouses. But there were 4 major concerns that came up in that hearing. So the first one was for vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation. In the original plan, we just had, which is on page 10 of the staff report. Anna, you don't need to bring it up, but just if anyone's looking for it, it's on page 10. So in the original plan, there was solely a 12-foot driveway, which then kept a 3-foot sidewalk that was already existing on the property. You can still see the remainder of it just along the north side of the existing building on lot 1. But this used to extend further out into where the driveway is now and then to the street. We're gonna eliminate that, and the paved actual asphalt portion of the driveway is gonna remain 12 feet, but we've added level 3-foot sidewalks on either side of it so that when there's just a car using the driveway, it would be using the driveway as normal, and pedestrians would be encouraged to use the sidewalk and would be able to walk up to either the townhouses or the apartment building using that sidewalk. But then in case there was a need for a resident to stop to unload their car, if a car was coming and going at the same time, they would be able to use that additional space to navigate around one another in the rare cases of conflicts. So that was our adjustment to this plan. It gives a lot more paved area. It makes it easier to drive around one another, and it's also more inviting on both sides to pedestrians. The second major comment and was about the lighting. We didn't change the lighting. We thought we had pretty good lighting to begin with, but we've called it out actively here. And if you look right above where it says Marsh Street in large letters vertically through the middle, there's a light fixture schedule, and this actually labels all of the lights. So there's lighting on the front and rear of each one of the townhouses, as well as 2 dark sky compatible, compliant, pardon me, lights in the parking lot, 1 for each half of it to cover it. There's also an existing security light facing what's currently the rear yard, but will be this parking lot, mounted on the back of the existing apartment building. That light's going to stay. We're not going to eliminate it at this time. It's not labeled on here because it's not something we're building, but it is there and it's not going to change. So we didn't, again, we didn't really change the lighting, but we called it out explicitly. So that was clearly there. Another piece of feedback was regarding the parking availability. We've worked really hard to balance both the available on-site parking with available on-site snow storage, as well as on-site drainage and open space. And unfortunately, we've not been able to add any additional parking spaces on site at this point. We could add another space or 2 at the expense of having nowhere to put snow and nowhere to drain. So in balancing all of that, we've not been able to add any spaces on site, but we did an evaluation based on the guidance from the city zoning regarding an alternate parking plan. There are 4 spaces available on the street in front of this lot. We are told to count 20%, or sorry, that would cover 20% of the deficiency. So 3 of those 4 spaces would count towards this. We've also added bike lockers to the site behind the existing building on lot 1 to account for another half a space. And then we also believe that this is a good spot for transit. RTS, it's going to be route 4, I believe, is going to be one of the high frequency routes, and it's going to have a stop right around the corner from here on Genesee Street. Additionally, I know there are plans to build a grocery store on Genesee Street across the street from this. And of course, it's walking distance to the campus too. There's not a lot of neighborhoods with the same level of amenities as this. Frankly, the Family Dollar is around the corner already for sundries. And then the last note was the drive lane sighting. In the initial plan, 5 feet of the 24-foot driveway, drive lane behind the parking spaces was on lot 2. We've adjusted that so that the entire parking lot and driveway and all of the resulting easements are on lot 1. Lot 2 is now the same 14 by 50 foot size lot that the other 3 internal lots are. So it's now the same dimensions as lots 3, 4, and 5. So that's the basic coverage of all of that. I know you've received a couple of letters from the neighborhood as well. And there were just a couple of small points that I wanted to make related to that as well. One, as part of this revised plan, we've also regraded the rears of the townhouses so that every townhouse is going to have its own trash cans. And the dumpster is explicitly going to be used only for the apartment building. So hopefully that goes further to address the issue that's been brought up a number of times there. One other small item is there continue to be concerns about the orientation of the townhomes. We've really gone out of our way to make this look incredibly similar to the large building next to it already. It's got a porch and a front door facing the street. If you were to be walking down Marsh Street, for all intents and purposes, it's going to read just as another large house and not as 5 separate houses. In the same way that the apartment building that's there is really only identifiable as an apartment building because of the 6 mailboxes on the front of it, these townhouses wouldn't be anything other than one large house unless you started walking down the driveway next to them. So that's what I wanted to bring up there. And I think that's everything that I wanted to present. If you look through the packet and you've seen it, we went over a couple of alternative plans as far as how to potentially get more driveway on site. All of them involved eliminating the rain garden runoff, which we thought was just not going to work for the site and coverage and how to deal with rainwater runoff. Eliminating that just didn't seem like a good idea. So we did not. All right, Anna, I'll turn it back to you.
Is all through, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, any questions for the applicant?
This is, David, this is Steve Rebholz.
Yes, Steve.
And I do have a question. Anna, if we could go back to that site plan, I just want to make sure I understand something. You described the 2 sidewalks on either side of the drive lane. And you described them as, I think, at the same surface level as the drive lane itself. So do I understand correctly that if 2 cars are passing, one coming in and one coming out, each car has to drive onto the sidewalk area in order to pass? I mean, is that what happens? We've kind of created a visual sidewalk, but the surface of the sidewalk is flush with the pavement, such that the goal of accomplishing the 2-way traffic is done by essentially driving on the sidewalk. Each car would drive on the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Quite, if they needed to. Technically 12 feet is wide enough for 2 cars to get by one another. But I also, we recognize that not everyone is capable of pulling that off either. So yes, they would use the sidewalk if necessary to get around one another.
you're saying the 12 feet is wide enough. I think the requirement is it 22 feet? Staff,
For
maybe you
it,
could
yes,
clarify
for
that.
a parking lot of more than 9 spaces, it's 22 feet. Yes.
Okay. And your means of accomplishing that, your design means, is to take the sidewalk, and rather than have it a pedestrian sidewalk, it's serving double duty as a sidewalk and a portion of the vehicle lane.
Correct.
Okay. And what material are you proposing?
Similar to the Woonarf around the corner from here on Orleans Street.
I'm sorry. What material are you proposing for the sidewalk?
It will be concrete.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one, but I'm not positive. This is Carrie Carroll. I'm not
Yes,
positive
Carrie.
I'm reading the map correctly. The dumpster is for the existing apartment building, but it looks like it's right down the center property line of the two lots. Was there am I reading that correctly? And was there a reason for the?
So lot 1 is L-shaped. It actually, everything that's not labeled lot 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 up here is lot 1. So it's lined up with the center line of the driveway so that a trash truck could pull directly back in, pick it up, and drive directly back out.
Got it.
But it's on lot 1,
Okay.
as are all 5 parking spaces on the north side of this property.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. This case is closed.
Oh, wait, real quick.
yes,
We
ma'am.
do have some comments that I will read.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I forgot to ask about those.
No worries. Before I go into the comments, I do want to go on record saying that we do have 2 alternate CPC members with us this evening. They were not present at the original hearing, but they did listen to the recordings from that hearing, which makes them capable to review this proposal. So Dave, do you want me to read the ones in favor first or the ones in opposition first? I forget.
Usually it's in favor, then we'll do opposition.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So there were, for the 93 Marsh Street project, there were 5 comments that were included when the staff report when it was published. Outside of that publication, we received 5 additional comments, 3 of which were in favor and 2 of which were in opposition. So I will start with the 3 in favor. And here we go. This is from Robert Williams on Friday, May 8th, 2020. I'm writing regarding approval of special permit in case E-21-19-20, a proposed 5 attached single-family dwellings townhouses as part of the 93 Marsh Street project. The CPC's objection is in large part to the proposed 11-space shared parking area between the 6 created lots on site. The CPC believes that 15 parking spaces must be provided off-site to serve a total of 11 on-site housing units. In November, City Council adopted a new comprehensive plan, Rochester 2034. Its place-making plan emphasizes the relationship between land use and transportation as important mobility corridors and higher density patterns mutually influence each other. The proposed project in case E-21-19-20 sits at the edge of a low-density residential character area, less than a block from neighborhood mixed-use character area. According to the plan, within a low-density residential character area, single-family houses that are attached, such as townhomes, should remain permitted as of right. Permitted uses and associated regulations should be revised to accommodate emerging housing types that diversify our housing stock, reflecting changing demographics, household sizes, and lifestyle preferences. The Rochester 2034 plan later states that parking minimums are car-oriented regulations intended for car-oriented places that fail to recognize, let alone encourage, the urban environment, its transportation choices, its historic context, or emerging trends. As a transportation planner with parking management experience, Poughkeepsie Parking Improvement Plan, Downtown Durham Parking Study, I can state that the principles in the Rochester 2034 plan regarding parking are sound. Residential developments in close proximity to mixed-use centers can supply sufficient parking through a combination of on-street parking, shared parking agreements, bicycle parking, transit access, ride-hailing services, and the intrinsic walkability of such a neighborhood. When off-street parking minimums are met per outdated code, car-dependent culture is perpetrated, density goals are undermined, and assessed property values left on the table. A movement is emerging across the country to eliminate parking minimums in order to promote alternatives to driving. A very applicable example can be found in the Buffalo Green Code, that nearby city's Unified Development Ordinance, which completely removes minimum parking requirements citywide. The alternative parking plan for 93-109 Marsh Street makes a good faith effort to provide the feasible amount of off-street parking without a variance request, while proposing a combination of other options to address the CPC's perceived deficiency. 4 on-street spaces exist on the curb immediately fronting this property. Per shared parking models, evening and overnight residential use of these public spaces should complement any use by nearby charter school faculty. Additionally, the nearby Genesee Street corridor has been identified by both the city's transit supportive corridor studies and the Reimagine RTS system redesign. High-frequency transit stops slated for a location only 600 feet from the project site are likely to impact the transportation dynamics of this entire neighborhood, including tenants of the proposed development site. For these and other reasons described in the alternative parking plan, I support approval of the special permit in case E-29-19-20 and consider it consistent with the goals and principles embodied in the multiple city planning documents. All right, here's the next one. This is from Jason Haremza on May 7, 2020. I have heard accounts of the public hearing and deliberations that took place on 1/13/2020 regarding the proposed subdivision and special permit for 93 Marsh Street, as well as subsequent actions by zoning office and law department staff. I urge the immediate approval of this project and respectfully remind the commission that Rochester is an urban place. Urban places are compact, dense, do not always offer private green space, and do not always offer abundant, excessive on-street parking. Providing some of these elements is actually anti-urban and can communally do great harm to cities. I'm hopeful that Rochester will embrace the urbanism inherent in its newly adopted comprehensive plan, and that in 2020, we as a city are no longer attempting to impose low-density, car-oriented development pattern on pre-automobile built form that characterizes much of Rochester. I'm gonna need to take a drink of water. The project received the support of the City of Rochester Planning Office. The project received the support of individual neighbors and originally received the qualified support of the neighborhood organization, which was later changed to incoherent opposition. I am frustrated by the complicated, confusing, and drawn-out approval process that this project and this applicant has had to endure. I am pleased by the subdivision was able to be approved administratively by the manager of zoning. I remain mystified by the Commission's original reluctance to approve the special permit, particularly when most or all of these issues were or should have been vetted through the site plan review process and findings document. The applicant's revisions to the projects, including adding 2 3-foot wide pathways to the 12-foot wide vehicle driveway, creating an 18-foot wide shared area, is more than adequate for the very low speed, very low volume for traffic for an 11-space residential parking lot. In addition, the dumpster is no longer shared by the single-family homes, which instead will each receive an individual toter, as every other single-family house in the city does. I remain perplexed how the 6-space parking area, the southern 6 spaces that already exist and will remain on the same parcel as the 6-unit multifamily dwelling that already exists can even be considered an ancillary parking lot needed for approval for such. The staff report, despite being voluminous, does not clearly explain the logic by which this conclusion was reached. The Commission's finding that more parking spaces are desirable is particularly vexing. The 11 spaces proposed meet the current parking requirement for the 11 dwelling units. The era of designing city around the desires of automobile users should be over. If the applicant believes they can successfully market the dwelling units with the code-compliant parking as proposed, it is an abuse of governmental authority to mandate otherwise. Parking is not at a premium in this neighborhood. On-street parking is plentiful. The very nature of urban areas is that they are multimodal and that the vehicle parking may be at some distance from the destination. There will be those that say that Rochesterians value their cars and thus require places to store these cars. That may be true for a segment of the community, but that becomes a self-fulfilling concept. Rochester will never move past its domination by motor vehicles without taking modest steps such as this project that provide the code-mandated parking, not extra parking spaces. Furthermore, transportation choices are changing, particularly for younger people, with proximity to proposed high-frequency transit service. The Genesee Riverway Trail and ride-hailing technology, 93 Marsh Street is an ideal location to live car-free or car-light in Rochester. Households with 2 working adults that 20 or 30 years ago may have had 2 cars can now have the option of needing only 1 car. Although some of these technologies may change as society adapts to COVID, the overall style of this proposed project with individual front doors not requiring shared elevators or lobbies is very adaptable to the world we now find ourselves in. I urge the commission to consider that just because this product, including its parking, may not be what they value, doesn't mean other segments of the population wouldn't find a newly constructed, well-designed for-sale attached single-family dwelling to be very desirable. This project is exactly the sort of contextual infill missing middle example, i.e. something in between detached single-family house and an apartment building that Rochester should be streamlining to approval, not prolonging the bureaucratic process and placing obstacles in the applicant's path. I personally would live on one of these dwellings and would welcome them in my neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration of these comments and the thoughtful but increasingly urgent review of this project despite the exigencies of the COVID pandemic. The approval timeline for this project has been unnecessarily torturous. Okay, next one. This one is from.
Could I just ask Anna that if they've given an address, could you read their name and address at the beginning of their comments?
Sure.
That's what we usually do during the regular hearings.
Yeah, sorry about that, Tom. So I'm going to go back then. The very first one was Robert J. Williams of 1082 E Mount Hope Avenue. The one I just read was of Jason Haremza of 34 Wilcox Street. Is that good? Okay. And then this next one is Justin Gallagher. He is with, I don't have an address, but he's with Gallagher Realty and Property Management. And this was sent and received on Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. In regards to the property at 93 Marsh Street, Rochester, New York, 14619, and the owner, Mr. Matt Danker, I want to acknowledge the many years of business relationship and personal interaction I've had with him. My real estate company started managing and caring for Mr. Danker's properties almost exactly 7 years ago, and since then we have always had 100% positive interaction and great participation from him when it came to the upkeep and maintenance of his properties. We have always found it very refreshing that he would come to us from time to time with great ideas for his properties. Many of these would be forward-thinking and a positive result for the current tenants, as well as the neighborhood. He has made numerous improvements to all the properties we manage for him. He has literally transformed some buildings that were eyesore to the nicest building on the street. Rochester needs young investors and developers such as Mr. Danker, and they need to be encouraged to keep thinking outside the box, as it only serves to improve the landscape of the city of Rochester. And there we have it for the 3 in favor. I'm going to zip over now to the 2 in opposition. So this is from the 19th Ward Community Association. They're located at 216 Thurston Road. And I'm just going to, it's signed by the zoning committee of that association. All right, so meeting with the developer. In reaching this position, we hosted a meeting in January with Matt Danker and a group of about 20 property owners from the surrounding neighborhood. These neighbors represented adjacent minority, non-white, moderate income owner occupants, plus some very reasonable involved investor owners. There are many issues raised, but the outcomes relevant to this case are: we have great respect for Matt Danker and his creativity, sincerity, and honesty. Infill housing development next to 93 Marsh Street is desirable and welcome. Up to 3 units oriented to this street would be in harmony with the neighborhood. Parking concern was high on the list of the many issues discussed that evening. Parking demand. Parking in this neighborhood is at a premium. Visits during the school year will show streets lined with parked cars. The competing needs along Marsh Street are: 3 and 4 bedroom residences may have as many as 1 vehicle per bedroom. Rochester Academy Charter School, 180 students, parking for teachers and staff. Monica Place Apartments, 21 units, 0 on-street parking. UR staff and students who park free on Marsh Street and walk to UR daily. St. Monica Church Office visitors entrance on Monica Street, ADA only 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. St. Monica CYO basketball, Saturday through Sunday. Occasional large funerals, Monday through Saturday. Parking need per CPC. The CPC in January prudently determined that the addition of the 10 bedrooms in the proposed townhouses to the existing 8 bedrooms in the large house would exceed the planned 11 off-street parking spaces. The need was defined as 15. Driver financial. In the discussion with Matt Danker, it became clear that the factor driving the need for parking, as well as several pending area variances, was the number of units. Neighbors agree that 3 units oriented to Marsh Street was a reasonable concept. However, Matt explained that financials were prohibitive for 3 units, hence the need for 5, and hence the need for turning the townhouses 90 degrees away from Marsh Street. Facing the side of the existing house, the traditional 19th Ward neighborhood character of street-facing units, adequate setbacks, modest green space, and parking were traded away. Interestingly, other private developers have successfully completed unsubsidized new build infill homes nearby. Examples are 1118 Genesee Street, 1160 Genesee Street, and the majority of the homes on Brookcrest Way. Parking proposal fails test. The proposal to meet the required parking deficit with 3 on-street spaces, 4 rentable bike lockers, and a bus stop 600 feet away fails the second criterion for the special permit. The addition of 10 bedrooms will have this substantial or undue adverse effect upon the character of the neighborhood, specifically parking. There is no overriding public need for the 5 squeezed-in $180,000 townhomes with no guarantee of owner occupancy that mitigates the impacts and effects of the proposed application. The resident owners in the Marsh Street area who may have worked multiple jobs, overcome redlining and discrimination to buy modest homes on Marsh, Page, Monaco, or Sawyer streets, as well as investor owners feel diminished quality of life when density is increased without proper accommodation, in this case for parking. We asked the Planning Commission not approve this special permit and leave these parcels available for an alternative infill design that respects the neighborhood character. Okay, so the last one is from Penny Linton, and she is at, I do not have Penny's address in with her submittal outside of a way to contact her. So she starts with the purpose of the low density residential zone. 1, as Marsh Street directs north to south, the proposed structure front and back is also proposed to be constructed north to south, whereas every other property on Marsh Street front and back faces east to west. 2, the proposed size of the structure along with the front and back being of North Street to south positioning. 3, there is a concern about snow removal, dumping and pileup as to the lot size and 11 parking spaces. 4, there is a concern about the garbage dumpster, which is always open, overflowing with trash, smells and attracts small animals, and no direct solution was provided to whether property would have garbage bins or the dumpster would remain for the proposed additional occupants. 5, concern. As the applicant does not have any prospective buyers, owner occupants for the proposed properties, voices of concern is that the structure will result in short-term renters moving in and out as the other structure property with the applicant own in the same said lot. 6, concern. Lack of parking for the property tenants and guests. We now have a street parking shortage as the school, teachers, and other employees parking on Barton, Marsh, Genesee, and Monica streets. 7, lot size proposed structure has potential to create overcrowding, congestion, and discord with living conditions. I have 2 other comments from Ms. Linton. As a direct neighbor to the proposed 5 attached single-family dwellings townhouses as part of the 93 Marsh Street project, I submit my written opposition. If this is constructed along back of my property line, it would not be in compliance to the zoning I bought into and now reside in the R1 low-density residential neighborhood. I enjoy the peace and somewhat quiet coming from 93 Marsh Street as I relax at my property that I am accustomed to due to the now low-dense population. And lastly, she says, the existing dwelling has 6 units, which should require at least 6 parking spaces rather than 4, in addition to the proposed 5 for townhouses. There need to be ample space for refuse service and removal. Recent pictures attached of current residents' refuse remains on lot for weeks. No provision explained of snow refuse removal provided when questioning at meeting. And those are the comments we have.
Okay, thank you, Anna. In that case, we could conclude this application.
Oh, wait, do we want to offer the applicant a chance?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yep. I'm sorry. Jumping ahead of myself. Matt, if you have any comments, you can respond. You have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. I mean, I think I addressed most of them ahead of the letters that were read. I think we've got the trash situation addressed. I think a couple of items in the last letter were misunderstandings. There are 6 spaces for the 6 apartments that remain, not 4. Additionally, what we're doing, building townhouses, is absolutely an allowed use in R1 zoning. We're not asking for, this is separate of the CPC, but we're not asking for a use variance to do this. Building townhomes in R1 is absolutely an allowed use. The only variances that are being pursued are for coverage. We actually are not pursuing a variance for the residential design standards, having met them. So, I mean, I guess on a personal level, if I have a concern, it's that that parking is somehow part of neighborhood character. I think the buildings and the people are neighborhood character and not really car storage. But beyond that, I don't think I have anything to add. We've worked really hard, like I said earlier, to make a building that looks like it faces the street and is large and matches size-wise with the building that's already there. Some of the other developments mentioned maybe didn't try as hard. If you've been to Brooks Crest Way, the 2 houses on Genesee Street actually have basically blank sidewalls facing Genesee Street, and those houses face the new subdivision street of Brooks Crest Way. I couldn't bring myself to do a project like that. We don't just have the side of a house facing Marsh Street. So yeah, I think that's everything. Everything else was covered pretty extensively beforehand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt. And we'll now close the case. And may we have the next case, please, Anna?
Sure thing. All right, this is case number 5. Okay, case number 5, file number E-40-19-20, applicant David Hartman, address 814 South Clinton Avenue. This is a special permit renewal. All present commissioners have visited the site.
Good evening, David.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this hearing is true, the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
This is the 3rd time I've come before you. First time was to get an entertainment permit, and it was temporary for 5 years. And then a second one, I came again, another 5 years, and asked for this time a permanent entertainment permit. And you folks were gracious enough to give me you extended for the temporary. And once again, I've had 10 years now of no problems. I believe that we've been an asset to the community. We were there before really the Southwich is really building up. So kind of like one of the cornerstone ones that were there, businesses. And we've never had a problem. And we go across the board as far as entertainment, from different types of shows and performers to from jazz to rock to metal. And we really don't have any problems. And I was hoping this time I could receive a permanent entertainment permit.
Anything else?
I'd say that Anna was unbelievably helpful as far as getting me into this
arena,
which I'm completely computer illiterate, so it was great. Well, and my daughter as well. But that's about it.
Okay, we'll ask, are there any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none?
I forgot, could we just address your the attendance? Did all the members visit the site?
Yes, everyone visited the site.
Okay, thank you.
And do we have any comments, any written or?
Yeah, so we got a comment after the staff report was published. So I'll bring that over the screen and read it real quick. This silly thing. I'm having the same problem I had before. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
The Firehouse has been a good neighbor, and I would like them to continue to have live entertainment. They are in an ideal spot for live entertainment. With 490 in their backyard and mostly commercial businesses in the immediate area, there should not be a problem with noise. Also, I've attended some of the live entertainment and found the customers like me in control and not too rowdy. For the record, I own the building at 754 Clinton Ave South and operate my business from it. So this is from Tom Finnerfrock of Stewart Spices at 754 Clinton Ave South, and this was received Friday, May 1st, 2020.
And those were the only ones we had?
Yep, that was the only one.
All right, then, Mr. Harbin, thank you so much, and we will stop this application and move on to the next. Maybe have the next application, please.
Okay. This is case number 6, file number E-41-19-20. The applicant is Robert Napier. The address is 292 Parkway, and this is a special permit. All present commissioners have visited the site.
Is Mr. Napier available? Oh, walked away. We'll wait for him.
I think he's figuring out his video. And it looks like he there is outside of Bob there may be another two, yeah. That you'll
Okay.
be signing in.
Hey, Angela, I'm here and I'm trying to show myself.
There you are.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay.
All right, I will swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And you may continue.
Well, good evening. My name is Robert Napier, and I'm also here with Nancy Tran and Han Wang. I'm the property owner of 292 Parkway, and Nancy and Han are representing S&J Nails. We are thankful and grateful to present 292 Parkway to council members tonight as a proposed salon requiring a special permit. 292 Parkway is a pre-existing structure that is a single level structure that sits on the corner of Parkway and Bloss Street. It is approximately 1,600 square feet with an existing parking lot. It is surrounded by neighboring residences, school, church, and commercial structures. Once again, we are here proposing a salon, and the proposed tenants for this property would be S&J Nails. Representing S&J Nails tonight is Nancy Tran and Han Wang. They will discuss their business and its operations to you now.
Okay, before we do that, I need to swear them in, so I'll read the same statement to them. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you guys. My name is Nancy Tran, and this is my business partner, Han Huang. We are the owners and operators of S&J Nails. Han and myself have currently been doing nails for 10 years. We have always dreamed of having our own business. We have worked consistently in one of our family members' nail salons for several years. In doing so, we have built a long and stable clientele base. So in that, we made the big decision to do it ourselves. For the past 2 years, we have provided our clients with mobile services. And we are currently, due to COVID, only providing press-on nails through emailing services and ordering online. We have found that to be very successful. We are looking to expand our business and open up a salon with operational hours of 9 a.m. through 8 p.m. The services that S&J Nails will provide are pedicures, manicures, nail enhancements, waxing, and also eyelash extensions. Me and my partner are also both licensed by New York State to do nail enhancements. I myself grew up in this neighborhood, so to see a new business open up, I personally feel it would be a positive impact on this community. We are hoping everything goes well this evening and hope that City Council will give me and my partner the opportunity. S&J will be looking to add 2 to 3 additional employees over time. All of our clientels do schedule appointments with us. We do not take walk-ins. So this will keep traffic in the building and also in the parking lot minimal. We will be practicing social distancing due to COVID, following safety requirements, putting shields on each nail station being used, and also providing our clientele with masks upon arrival. Also, in this building, we have 2 working washing areas. And also, we would be asking clients to wash their hands and also hand sanitize before services are done. We are looking forward to servicing this community. We feel that providing these services will bring a sense of not only beauty, but confidence to those that we serve. Thank you for hearing us out tonight.
Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to share?
Yes, David, let me just add a few.
No,
Regarding the city's findings, our proposed salon would be less intense than the previous pre-existing use, which was a coffee shop and a diner, and less intensity with regards to volume and sales, nature and location of storage, transportation requirements by volume, type, and characteristics, parking and loading characteristics, noise, smoke, odor, glare, vibration, radiation, and fumes, as well as hours of operation. This completes our presentation. Thank you once again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Before we ask for questions, just kind of an update. Thank you for the promotion for the commission. We're not city council, we're planning commission. So again, we appreciate your faith in us, but we're planning commission. Are there any questions? That's okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, please. Or Richard?
How long has the building been vacant?
Quite a while. I have owned it since about 2012. And the person I purchased it from bought it from a city auction. At that point, I believe was also vacant. Not sure how many years, Richard.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? Jill, are there any comments that have come in since Friday? Or Anna, I'm sorry. Anna, you're on mute.
Aye. Thanks, Dave.
That's okay.
Okay.
Anna, before we begin, could you just recite what the attendance was visiting this site?
Yep, everyone visited it.
Thanks.
This is from Dr. Cynthia Anderson. She is of the adjacent property, directly adjacent on Bloss Street. I don't have the address at the top of my head, but here we go. Dear members of this planning committee of case number 6 file E-41-19-20, I, Pastor Cynthia Anderson, would like to express my opposition to the plan of the nail salon being an established business at this address, 292 Parkway. I object to the proposed use of the property for the following reasons due to being attached to the building in Plan Number 6. The traffic issue is a problem during school sessions and church services. Burdensome to the community operation of this sort of business is not suitable for this location. People traveling from other cities and at night, the lighting is challenged when church services are dismissed. With our children, it is difficult to see who our children are in contact with as they go to their cars. It has a negative impact in this area, the traffic volume. No set hours. I have seen them working after 10 p.m. We, the church board, do not feel safe to secure the church and the salon to make sure the members of the Greater Faith Hope Center, previously Faith Bible Tabernacle Center Incorporated, is protected. It brings hardship to the membership. It has impeded the community outreach that the church has maintained within the last 3 years. And then she provides her contact information for additional questions.
That was the only one?
That was it, yep.
Okay. The applicant has an opportunity to provide any additional information if you wish.
Yes, I'd like to provide a little bit.
Okay.
Comment. First of all, the adjacent church has no parking lot. All their members either park on the street or we've given permission for them to use our parking lot on Sunday mornings and at other requested times. So I don't understand at all the negative impact with respect to traffic. Once again, these are scheduled appointments that we're proposing. So we have proposed 3 parking spots on the plan. We can actually probably fit more cars, but don't feel the need to because, again, of the way we're going to be scheduling things. Secondly, with regards to working after hours, we haven't started operations yet. We have been renovating a few things, and perhaps we're there late 1 or 2 nights, but I don't quite understand the comment. That's all I have to add.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Without any other questions, we will move to the next, close this case and move to the next application.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Case number 7, file number E-42-19-20, applicant Blake Giannini, address 409 Alexander Street. This is a special permit and all present commissioners have visited the site.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Can you hear
Good evening,
me?
Blake. We will swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may start.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Blake Giannini, and I am a city resident. About a year ago, we purchased 727 East Main Street and 409 Alexander in hopes of redeveloping it. We own a few of the adjacent properties, and we're tired of looking at the boarded up zombie commercial building next door. It's been vacant for many years. And could you turn to the 409 Alexander site map that's like purple and yellow, the zoning one? There we go. A year later, we now have 2 signed leases and are excited to bring some energy back to this forgotten building on Rochester's Main Street. 409 Alexander, as you can see, is located behind 727 East Main. 409 Alexander and 411 Alexander, the property just to the north, visually appear to form one parking area that has been illegally accessed by driving between 727 East Main Street and 707 East Main Street. We learned that appearances are not everything, and although this lot had been used as a parking lot for many years, it was not done so legally. I approached Jim Volpe, who's our neighbor. He owns 705 and 707 East Main and 411 Alexander, with the idea of legalizing the lots together so that our tenants could each have the use of parking legally going forward. He provided resistance, so I offered to manage and pay for the entire process and any changes needed. He declined that offer as well. We want to redevelop the building and lot in a responsible and safe manner, so I told him I would be moving forward to legalize the existing conditions of my lot and make it safe for my new tenants by myself. We have borrowed $1.2 million from Canandaigua National Bank to rehab both the interior and exterior of the property for our new tenants. I have included a rendering of what the back of 727 East Main Street will look like upon completion in my application. There we go. And could you show what it currently looks like also? There's another one right there. That's what it looks like currently. Now could you go to the plan from McMahon LaRue that shows the changes? There we go. Since I am legalizing my existing lot only, we had to make a number of design sacrifices. We had to reduce the number of parking spaces by adding an entry off of Alexander, snow storage, and 45-degree angled parking. Our lot on its own is not wide enough to be approved for two-way traffic, with enough space for cars to turn around safely. The one-way traffic will exit through the existing driveway between 727 East Main and 731 East Main. We own both 727 East Main and 731 East Main. While working on this plan with Greg McMahon from McMahon LaRue Engineering, I contacted and met on site with John Lembeck of Pearl Megs Association, Sunshine Jacobs from ACE, and Charlie Peterson of 407 Alexander. He is the only residential neighbor. I was also able to speak on the phone and correspond via email with Evan Lowenstein of Neighborhood of the Arts and Jesse Noth of Southeast Area Coalition. The only two people I reached out to that refused to meet on site are the two people that have written letters in opposition. With input from these related parties, I believe we have come up with a safe, responsible solution that involves very minimal changes from the current existing lot. Jim Volpe, again, owner of 411 Alexander, the other half of the parking area, has cited an easement in his opposition to this project. This easement discusses the relationship between 727 East Main Street and 707 East Main Street. This relationship will be unaffected. The easement does not discuss or mention the lots at 409 and 411 Alexander. I want to also point out that the map that he includes in his letter of opposition is his map only and not part of any easement. Because of the nature of the lot, I'm not able to meet every requirement for an ancillary lot. First, I am asking to waive the requirement for an ancillary lot to service a property in a less restrictive zoning area. Even though these properties are adjacent, 409 Alexander is in R2 and 727 East Main is in CCDM. Secondly, there is a setback requirement that I am not meeting on the north side of the lot. This side of the lot is also a paved parking area. Thirdly, I am proposing no additional lighting. There is a utility pole with a light on the site currently that supplies considerable light. In meeting with Charlie, he is the only residential neighbor that's affected. He is 407 Alexander to the south of this property. The only residential neighbor, I described our plans to light 727 East Main Street and to trim the tree that we share. He has written a letter in support of the project and has said he is comfortable with the lighting plan. While meeting with Charlie, we also discussed not adding any parking control mechanism. He feels comfortable with this because of the new fence that will line his property, the lighting providing from 727 East Main, trimming back the existing tree, and the way we have laid out the parking places. Lastly, we are asking for a variance regarding lot coverage. We will not be expanding the existing condition of the lot in any way except the new driveway shown on the map to access the lot from Alexander Street. Thank you all for volunteering your time, and I'm happy to discuss any specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Are there any questions for the applicant?
From me?
No, from the commissioners.
Or the applicant, gotcha.
Any questions?
This is Carrie Carroll. I did have one. It's just, I think, for clarification. So there is an existing easement between properties on East Main Street, but those do not impact the properties we're talking about today.
Correct.
Okay, so.
I think the easement is included in the packet. And I mean, you can look it up on the online also. But the easement refers, it describes the relationship between 727 East Main Street and 707 East Main Street. The lots on Alexander are not mentioned in it at all.
Nothing to do with this. Okay, excellent. I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
Yeah.
This is Richard Mauser. If you could explain that a little more. You're saying that you've got an easement for parking coming off of East Main, and what you want to do is add, well, this is parking already, but you want to add an entrance on Alexander Street to make a flow through parking.
The only reason I mentioned the easement is because our neighbor who has written a letter in opposition is citing the easement. And so I mentioned it to point out that the map that he included, and he has given me before, and he has given his tenants and neighbors, is not a map that is part of the easement. It is just his own map. The easement describes the relationship between 727 and 707, of which that is unaffected by this, by my design in any way.
If I could just speak up, Tom Worth from the law department. The zoning code even specifies that it's not the business of our boards or our staff to figure out or enforce easements among private individuals. So it's not something that we even have to determine in evaluating this application.
Well, Tom, I'm just curious because obviously he's only got a 12-foot driveway in, and if that's meant to be two directional,
it's not meant to be two directional. There's a one-way entry on Alexander Street, and then the other side of 727 is 731 East Main, and I own both 731 East Main and 727 East Main. So the one path will exit out through that existing driveway that is currently in existence.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have one just quickly, just to make sure. I can't make out on the site plan. Is there a fence that separates? Yes, thank you. Is there a fence that separates the proposed 9 spots with the ones that are to the east?
It's 7 spots and east. There is a guardrail proposed.
Okay, so there will not be a fence, it'll be a guardrail?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a new fence. There's currently 2 fences on the south side. And one of them is like chain link, and one of them is a nice wooden fence. And we'll be getting rid of the chain link fence as part of the process and matching the nice wood fence and continuing it along the property line.
Okay, thank you.
That meets the requirement of screening.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one, and maybe it's because I'm slow on the uptake, and now I'm catching up with Richard.
Yeah, Tom.
So for this driveway, are you relying on using an adjoining parcel for part of the driveway to access this parking lot?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Is the access driveway to this parking lot, are you relying on an adjacent parcel, even though it's owned by you, to access this parking lot?
No, to exit.
To exit, you're relying on an adjacent parcel.
The entry will be through Alexander Street. The reason we couldn't do two-way traffic, this lot was originally, it had an entry there, and it went through a zoning process in the early 80s and was legalized as a parking lot with that entry and exit. But then they never pulled a permit, and it's kind of a long,
yeah.
So never pulled a permit for it. I don't have the space to do 90-degree parking with two-way traffic unless I included the neighbor's property, which we would have plenty of space then. But since he didn't want to move forward legalizing the lots, I was forced to make some sacrifices, and that was one of them, is that I had to figure out how to make one-way traffic work, which I believe I have.
And let me ask this, is the one-way traffic relying on a parcel other than 409?
The exiting traffic relies on an existing path between the buildings 727 and 731 East Main, and I own both of those buildings.
Okay, this is one thing where we probably would require, as a condition of approving this, that would you be willing to provide an easement?
The staff, I believe the staff report says in it that I will be required to and be submitting an easement.
Okay, and I wanted to make that clear in the record that you're willing to do that.
I will be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Are you proposing any lighting for the parking lot? I didn't see it on your site plan. And if you are, we'll get those lights.
So that was part of the presentation. Is I met with Charlie, who's the residential neighbor, and he actually parks in that lot, and I'm reaching an agreement where he probably will continue doing that. He says there is a utility pole with a big light on it already, and that's on the existing lot, and he says that provides ample lighting. I met with him on site, showed him pictures of what we are doing to the building. The back of the building will be lit up. And he felt comfortable with the design, and that was what we submitted.
Have you done a lighting studies? He said that it's good, but do you know for sure?
When you say lighting study, what do you mean exactly?
So if hire an engineer and you see if you have one pole, if that's going to be enough. It seems like it's going to be pretty dark if you don't have any type of lighting, unless you put it right into the building like you have it on your rendering.
We have lighting that, as you're seeing, will go. That's how the building's going to look, to the back of the building, and then the utility pole does provide quite a bit of lighting to the building. We did have the Greg McMahon help us design this project, and with the 7 spots, didn't think it was necessary.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Jill, I'm sorry, Anna, any comments that have come in since the staff report?
Yes, so as you know, there were 2 comments received or included in with the staff report. Outside of that publication, we received an additional 4. So I will read those to you all right now. The first one is from the Ace neighborhood, specifically Sunshine Jacobs. And Ace, I don't know if I have an address for Ace, but this was received Sunday, May 10, 2020. Dear members of the Planning Commission, we are aware of Mr. Giannini's application for a driveway to Alexander Street to allow access to the existing parking behind his property on East Main Street. We are writing in support of his petition. In February, we met with Mr. Giannini at his property. We discussed his plans and looked at various options with him. We were delighted to learn that he had already had planned tenants. All of the plans he discussed with us seemed to offer a significant enhancement to this stretch of East Main Street and mesh nicely with the entertainment district of which it is a part. While this property is west of Ace, it is adjacent to our neighborhood. What happens in adjacent neighborhoods affects all of us, especially along commercial corridors. We are in agreement with Mr. Giannini that there is no better or other solution than the one for which he has applied. It would be fruitless to create the sort of venue he has planned for the back of the building if there is no practical way to reach it. We understand the hope that Rochester will become less car-centric, but the reality is that to draw revenue from as wide a source as possible, we must be able to accommodate private vehicles. In considering Mr. Giannini's application, I hope that you will find our public support helpful. The next one was received from John Lembach at 105 Meg Street. The applicant has presented a reasonable plan to revive this area of East Main Street. The plan includes a more realistic usage of the parking areas alongside 727 and 731 East Main Street that are currently seldom used. Parking availability is an essential need for any business in the city of Rochester, particularly those who depend customers and patrons from outside the immediate neighborhood. I have visited this site, interviewed the owner, and spoken with next-door neighbors on Alexander Street, and found the intended plans for the layout and landscaping for this parcel to be reasonable. The current usage and parking arrangements created by a former owner who is now objecting to this application have stifled an effective redevelopment of this area. My experience with this owner involving several other properties is that he is sensitive to neighbor concerns, provides a high level of maintenance to each property, and follows through on his promises. I believe approval of this application to be in the best interest of this neighborhood and city generally. These are shared goals that the Planning Commission has effectively considered in its recent decisions. I endorse approval of this application without reservation. Next, we have a comment from Jordan Morgenstern of 1080 Pittsford Victor Road, received on Friday, May 8, 2020. I am an owner of 417 Alexander Street, Rochester, New York. I am writing the City Planning Commission in support of the special permit requested by Blake Giannini, East Main LLC. I'm sure the CPC is aware of the history of the 727 East Main Street property. It has been vacant for approximately 5 years. Legalizing the existing parking lot will help the viability of the banquet facility and improve the overall neighborhood appearance. Cleaning up the 409 Alexander Street parking lot and bringing the 727 East Main Street property back to life is in everyone's best interest. Thank you for your time. Next, we have a comment from Jason Haremza of 34 Wilcox Street. This was received Thursday, May 7, 2020. I urge the approval of this project. While I'm generally not in favor of surface parking lots, this parking lot already exists and went through an approval process in the 1980s. It is unfortunate that 409 and 411 are no longer under common ownership and cannot function as one parking lot as designed without vehicle access to Alexander Street. The prior common owner of 409 and 411 should have been required to combine the parcels upon original approval in 1980. The current owner and his efforts to invest in 727 East Main should not be penalized by the city's inaction on this lot combination 40 years ago. While the new driveway onto Alexander is less than desirable, it is a worthwhile trade-off to facilitate the viable reuse of 727 East Main Street. Thank you for your consideration of these comments and your thoughtful review of this project. And those are the comments for this.
All right, thank you. You may have any comments that you'd like to have, Mr. Blake?
I don't think so. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. In that case, this.
David.
Yes, Richard.
I guess I'm still trying to get my head around on this lot number 4 has a egress easement. Does that pertain to this property? And I mean, I guess when I visited the property, you know, I went in that driveway on what's called lot number 4 to the west of the building. I didn't bother driving around to the other side out, but as I look at this, I'm thinking, you know, if this is the loop he needs to do, and lot number 11 on Alexander Street, Volpe is not amenable to helping him out. How do you manage that turn? It's a pretty tight turn there with the parking to actually get around to the east of 727. I'm just trying to get my head around how are you going to really accomplish that?
I mean, we'll have directional arrow, but I mean, I've made the drive before and it's sufficient. And it would be convenient to have, as Jason said in his letter, the lot was approved, 409 and 411 together under one ownership almost 40 years ago. Was approved as a parking lot, and if we could have worked together, we could have had ingress and egress on Alexander Street and not made as many design sacrifices, but I had to. And this was the the only way, or this was the way to do it with the least amount of variances.
So that easement that's referred to on lot number 4 has nothing to do with your property?
Well, I own a couple of these. It has nothing to do with 409 Alexander is correct, yeah.
Well, it has to do with getting to that parking on 409 Alexander though, right?
Currently, if you illegally access 409, then yes. That is how you get there illegally currently. That is the reason I'm trying to add ingress from Alexander Street.
Okay, I guess I'm just looking at it. Where I'm coming from is, if you get the access from Alexander Street and you drive in, do you have to turn right, or can you go straight ahead and go through lot 4 to get out?
I did speak with one of the city attorneys about this. It wasn't Tom. I forget which guy it was. Originally, that was what our plan was. And he said that because of that easement, it is not transferable to other properties. And so I cannot transfer the right that 727 has to exit through 707's lot to another parcel. So I have to do this on my property, which I have proposed.
But don't you have to drive through your property from 409 to get to 707?
Okay, so 707 is not my property.
No.
And I do not plan on using it.
But 727 goes all the way back. It looks like lot 12, number 409 does not even, it's not contiguous with 707. Is that true?
Correct.
So you got to drive through your lot to get there.
Are you like to get to the parking places?
Well, I guess I'm trying to, I mean, basically, yeah, to get to the parking places.
You will not be using that lot to get to the parking places. They are angled at 45 degrees, and there is a entrance being proposed for Alexander Street. So you will enter on Alexander Street.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it going, wait a minute, the technically, once you leave 409, you're no longer on that property, right?
When you drive onto 727, yes, you are on 727.
Right.
Originally, my plan was to exit through 727 through 707. But in speaking with the city attorney, he said that the rights to use the exiting easement are not transferable to other parcels.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually,
if I could do that, I would prefer it, but it's just.
Okay, I guess I'm splitting hairs and I don't have many left.
I actually have similar question, and this is for Tom. So Tom, this will be approved with condition with the parking, meaning that if he sells 707, that means the parking will become legal. Or if 707 Main is sold, then there will be very little access for someone to. So my question is, what will happen, Tom, if any of these property are sold? Would this permit bid void?
That's why the easement I discussed with Mr. Giannini is going to be required, so that if he sold that parcel, the purchaser would still be required to allow access.
I can jump on to Tom and zoning. Sorry, I've just been listening and I'm just jumping on to clarify a little bit. And we have discussed all of these access issues. So that's why, of course, my dogs are barking. That's why he's proposing the easement between his two properties on Main Street and the property on Alexander. So those three properties will be tied together and they'll always, ensure access to exit the site. The easement on the other property with the neighbor, that's not affected and they're not proposing an exit on that curb cut.
So Tom Kisiar, would it be correct to say that what we're talking about is easements on 407 Alexander Street, which is owned by Mr. Giannini, so he can record easements?
Just so I wanted to correct, you said 407, the lot's 409, just so we make sure we're talking about the right one.
But So to get access to 409, are you going to give an easement to part of 407?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Those are lots that are not, there's no need for an easement on those. 407 is a residential lot with a house on it that Charlie lives at.
So he's proposing an easement from 409 Alexander, which is the parking lot, to his two properties on East Main, which are 727 and 731. There's an existing exit onto East Main Street between those two properties that he owns. There's no easement with his neighbor for that exit. So he's able to create an easement to tie those three properties together to ensure an exit onto East Main Street. There's also an exit onto East Main Street from the other side of the building, which is a shared access with the neighbor, but that won't be affected and that's not part of this proposal.
So there's no easements on either the north or south parcels to the north or south of 409 Alexander. What we've been talking about is just easements to cross parcels that are on East Main Street.
Right. Currently, there's no easement with 409. He's free to, create whatever easements he wants. The neighbor does not have any easements over his property at 409.
What properties? So this is a ancillary parking lot for 409 Alexander Street. Tom Kisior, can you tell me what properties Mr. Giannini has to give us easements for?
So he's going to have an easement to connect 409. So the map is up, and maybe this is a little easier. To connect 409, people will enter onto 409, park there. They will exit onto 727. He owns that property. And then they will travel and exit through the shared exit with 727 and 731.
My eyes are a little bit bad. So there's a shared easement that'll be required to another Giannini owned property on East Main.
Yep.
And it's
correct.
What is that? 431,
perfect.
439? Or 731-739?
Yep.
Okay.
Then the other easement, which is the old easement, has to do with 705.
Yeah, I know that
parking
stuff.
area. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're not dealing with that one.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep. Everybody up to speed? Any other questions?
None.
Then I'm going to thank you, Blake, for your presentation, and
Thanks,
we
Paul.
will end this application and call for the next application, please.
Let me get this annotation away.
Good job.
Okay, but now let's figure out if I'm technically savvy enough. All right.
Yay.
Okay, here we go. Last but not least. This is case number 8, file number E-43-19-20. The applicant is Tanya Swallen. The address is 836-838 South Clinton Avenue. This is a special permit, and I'd like to go on record saying all present commissioners have visited the site.
Mr. Watson, you're muted.
Thank you. I will now swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Right? And you may start your presentation.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Moses Wallen, and I'm the owner of this property. Thanks for the opportunity to present this request for a special permit for 836-838 South Clinton Avenue. The purpose is to establish a rooming house containing 7 rooming units with the purpose of creating a sober living community for women. So I've owned this property for 6 years. I live a half a mile away, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 17 years. I own a business, a city planning consulting firm that operates right next door at 820 South Clinton Avenue. The tenant on my first floor moved out in 2019. It was previously a church, and that created an opportunity to do something different with this property. And around that time, I met Van Smith from Recovery Houses of Rochester. He's also on the Zoom call tonight, and heard about his organization and how he's been creating and running recovery houses throughout the city. And so he spoke at a conference of the American Planning Association in Rochester in October 2019. And right after that conference where I heard him speak, I followed up, and we've been planning this project since then. And I engaged Architectura to help me with the design of the space. So it's currently 2 units, 1 residential and 1 commercial. And so with this application, I'm asking to operate it as 1 space with 7 tenants. During this process, my profession is city planning, and public engagement is my main focus. So I was really proactive about engaging the residents on this project. So I solicited input from Swilberg Neighborhood Association, Highland Park Neighborhood Association, although they declined and deferred to Swilberg, Seek, and I know you have a letter from Seek, as well as Swilberger Playhouse right next door. And I think all of those letters were included in your packet. With Swilberg, we had a little bit of a back and forth. They had some questions for me, and I think I responded to all of those, and that's reflected in their letter to you. So I think overall, I just want to say that my goal with this project is to promote inclusivity in the city of Rochester, to increase density on commercial corridors and maintain safe, affordable housing options, particularly for women who are creating new lives for themselves, newly sober women. And I think all of these goals are in support of Rochester 2034, the comprehensive plan, which I've read and think is a great plan. This is a safe neighborhood. It's stable, it's vibrant. I think it's a wonderful place to live and work. And I want to create more opportunities for other people to live and work in this neighborhood. There's a transit stop right in front of the building, or in front of 820 South Clinton, right next door. So I think this will be great for people who need transit to work. It's not adjacent to any other residential properties. There's one a couple doors down, but I think this is a good location for a project like this, because it's not nestled in a neighborhood where I think, possibly neighbors might be concerned. So it's adjacent to dense residential, but it's on a commercial corridor. And then I think a final point that I want to say is, we have a goal of providing diverse housing options in this city, but to my knowledge, there's no other sober living facilities for women. Van operates sober homes for men currently, but there aren't any for women. And that's something that I'm particularly interested in resolving for our city. I think this is really needed, because newly sober people need to stay away from the people and places and things where they used to spend their time, so that they're away from the drugs and the alcohol and temptation. So I've had a couple of negative comments that I want to address in the letters. One is about the proximity to establishments that sell alcohol. And my experience is that you can get drugs and alcohol whenever you want. I think even if you were in Siberia, you would probably have access to drugs and alcohol. And I really think that it's isolation that fuels addiction. And so the antidote, therefore, is creating a community. And this will be a community of 7 women who have meals together, have meetings together, do chores together, and that it will really be a space, where women are creating relationships with one another. Another comment was about parking, and I don't anticipate that there will be a demand for parking with this project. There is a driveway, and it fits about 3 cars. And then there's on-street parking. I myself, when I drive to work from 5 blocks away, I park on the street on Meg Street and I never have an issue at all. So I think in closing, my involvement and my personal interest in this project matched with Van Smith's experience running sober living homes in Rochester are really key differentiators. I think this project is greatly needed. I'm sensitive to the comments of my neighbors, and I'm going to remain engaged in a conversation with them if this special permit is approved. So thanks for your consideration. I'm interested in your questions.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions for the applicant? Any questions? I have one. Can you tell us how long do you anticipate the women staying at the facility before they move out?
I would like to ask Van Smith, who's on the call, to answer that question, and maybe you need to swear him in.
Yes. And I will do that. Van, are you there?
You got to unmute, Van.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Let me swear you in.
Okay.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Yes, now, I guess you can respond to the question that I had or to what Tanya had.
Yes, so the question was in terms of length of stay,
Yes.
The average length of stay is about 3 to 6 months. However, residents can stay as long as they need to. It's person-centered care, so we don't make a determination as to how long they stay. They do, because they're the ones driving their care, their support.
Super. Thank you so much. Any other questions for the applicants? All right, hearing none. Is there any testimony that was received after the staff report?
Yes. So as you guys know, there were three comments that were included in the staff report, one of which was the one from the neighborhood association that Ms. Moses-Wallen acknowledged. Then outside of that, there were 3 additional comments, 2 in favor, 1 in opposition. So I will start with the 2 in favor. This is from Lisa Reagan of 220 Linden Street. As an active longtime member of the South Wedge Planning Committee, I'm commenting on this request for a special permit that borders the South Wedge. The South Wedge has one of the highest concentrations of residential programs in the city. Many of them operate very safely and productively in the residential neighborhoods. Others have caused challenging problems for the residents and the neighbors. A residential house for children in need of supervision used to operate across the street from me for more than a decade. As much as I supported the program, the residents of the house were sometimes at serious risk because of lack of appropriate supervision, as were the neighbors. The young people rotated in and out of the house frequently, making it hard to develop relationships with the neighbors and neighborhood. I support the proposed use with the proposed management. However, I agree with the Spielberg neighborhood's concerns. I would suggest that the special permit requested is granted, that a condition be placed on the granting of a special permit that causes it to expire if the proposed use and management of the specific program as described ceases. It should not be used as a rooming house without the specific support and services and supervision proposed. I represent low-income seniors who are tenants of rooming houses as a legal services attorney. My clients have frequent complaints of behaviors in their rooming houses that put them at risk. These include other short-term tenant residents and visitors who aggress them, inability of management to maintain safe and sanitary conditions to prevent rodents, bed bugs, and other infestations, and main entrances being propped open, allowing those who do not live there or have any accountability to enter the rooming house. I question that no answer was provided on the application to questions 9 and 20, despite the form's request for explanation. In addition, the building next door, which is historic, has not been maintained and appears at risk of losing structural integrity due to lack of brick pointing and other deferred maintenance. That was from Lisa Reagan, and this one is from Jason Haremza of 34 Wilcox Street, received May 7, 2020. I urge the approval of this project. Rooming houses serve as a critical niche in the housing market. As housing affordability is a growing concern, rooming houses can fulfill the need for safe, decent, affordable housing. I live approximately a half a mile from this location and frequently walk past it and value the diversity a project like this brings to the larger community that it inhabits. I would remind the Commission not to be prejudiced by middle-class biases against rooming houses. Unfortunately, there are elements of many zoning codes, including Rochester's, that are based in mid-20th century classist and racist assumptions of certain types of development. The availability of a range of housing sizes and types is critical to sustaining and enhancing an equitable Rochester. Thank you for your consideration of these comments and your thoughtful review of this project. That was from Jason Remza of 34 Wilcox. I'm going to move right into the one in opposition. This is from Peter Nicoletta. I don't have an address for Mr. Nicoletta. I believe he references it in his letter. This was received on the, I don't have that at my disposal, but it was received by the deadline. We are all aware of the need for safe places where persons recovering from addiction can find peace. I'm sure we can all agree that the need is real and that many residents benefit from programs such as the one offered by Recovery Houses of Rochester Incorporated. As a family member of one who struggles with addiction, I can understand the need for such a place as this. In the site selection process, I believe that Recovery House of Rochester has made an error, as there are 2 establishments which sell liquor less than 150 feet, 50 paces of the front door of the proposed location. This fact offers recovering addicts neither a safe nor alcohol and drug-free environment. It is disturbing to think that this location was even considered as a viable solution to the housing needs of this vulnerable group of people, and seems to violate the fundamental principles of the organization's mission to offer recovering alcoholics and addicts safe alcohol and drug-free peer-driven housing. If the principal belief of the Recovery House is truly to provide a safe environment for its residents, then it should strongly consider another location, not only for its tenants, but for the neighborhood as a whole. I have no doubt that many good people have benefited from recovery houses, but in this case, I feel that it is the wrong location, and therefore oppose the special permit. And that's all I have for you guys on this one.
Okay, thank you. Tanya, do you have any response or comments regarding that testimony?
I think I did try to address that in my initial comments, and I think that there's always going to be access to drugs and alcohol. If you don't mind, I'd be curious if Van had anything to add to that. Is he allowed to respond?
Yes.
Okay, Van, do you have anything more to say about that?
Yeah. So while I do consider the person's comment, we can't control the outside world, but what we can teach people is how to manage themselves in recovery. And with that being said, that's why the support of other women that are in recovery is so important. It's the environment that we create where we become good neighbors, where individuals make a choice not to use alcohol and drugs. And this is not a place where individuals are mandated to be. This is a setting where they choose to be. So it's really about educating folks on our residents on and providing that support for them while they're residing in a recovery house. It's about providing that peer support as well as providing management support as well as support within the community from various agencies that our residents are associated with.
I have a question.
Yes,
Yes, Van, can you describe a little bit more specifically what support consists of?
Excuse me?
Can you describe what support in the house consists of?
Yes, what support in the house consists of is peer support, and we also will have a manager that'll be accessible 24/7. Again, this recovery residence is where people that are in recovery live. Treatment is provided outside of the residence in regards to the local treatment agencies that most of our residents are associated with. So their services are provided within the community. And this is an environment that's supported and created by the residents that live in the recovery residence. We have rules. We have random drug testing that goes on. We also have policies and procedures that govern our recovery residences. And folks are explained those and orientated on those expectations prior to entering a recovery residence.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions? Then Van, thank you. Tanya, thank you.
Thank you.
This ends the case number 8. Before we leave, I would suggest that we take 15 minutes and we resume our deliberation or start our deliberation at 8:30. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
All right, so we see everybody. In that case, this hearing is closed and we'll start deliberation in 15 minutes.